have now. We've gotten to that point of the show. The time is 12:52. We're nearly getting to 1 p.m. So welcome. I'm going to give you all your full titles. I'm welcoming you, Dr. Epifania Amoo-Adare. Welcome to Arts Africa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, can I call you Epifania?
Oh, yeah, please.
Okay, so tell me, how are you? How's your week been?
It's good. It's been good. Mellow, quiet.
As I mentioned last week, you know, the kind of books you read can give an insight into who you are as a person. So, Epifania, tell me, what book are you reading from this week?
Yes, so I brought actually June Jordan's lyrical campaigns.
Oh.
So it was hard to make a choice because there's so many good books. So I actually brought more than one book. But
I can see there's like 5 or 6 books here. Okay, so before you start, you know, I realized I've been bush these last few weeks. I haven't been offering my guests, I haven't been doing the proper African welcome. So I have some water and juice here. What can I offer you?
Water, please.
Water. Okay. It's a little chilled. And I'm pulling off labels because until we get sponsorship from them, I'm not going to show them. I'm not showing them off. And can you imagine this particular one is refusing to come off. By hook or crook, you'll come off.
Joel, show me your bottle.
Joel, can you get this off for me? Okay. So she is having water. I'm having juice. And what I also want to show you here, check out this beautiful cup. This cup is from the I Collective Art. And it goes by, she's an artist, so she has different names for different things. This is from her A.B. Gottfried collection. And as I said, it is part of an art collection she does. And I was gifted this beautiful cup. Check it out. So once she gives us all her social media handles, make sure, you try and get one of these. You see how beautiful it is? So I absolutely love it. I'm having my drink out of this. And here's her label-free bottle of water.
Thank you.
Sorry for left. Okay, so Epifania, I am really interested in what you're going to read from us, so take it away.
So as I said, I picked several, but I wanted to read this because I think it really ties into the piece Afia read earlier. And also you talked about South Africa as well and the old days. But it's June Jordan's poem about my rights, and it's a little heavy, but it's a good one. Even tonight, I need to take a walk and clear my head about this poem, about why I can't go out without changing my clothes, my shoes, my body posture, my gender identity, my age, my status as a woman alone in the evening, alone on the streets, alone not being the point being that I can't do what I want to do with my own body because I am the wrong sex, the wrong age, the wrong skin. And suppose it was not here in the city, but down on the beach, or far into the woods, and I wanted to go there by myself, thinking about God, or thinking about children, or thinking about the world, all of it disclosed by the stars and the silence. I could not go, and I could not think, and I could not stay there alone, as I need to be. Alone because I can't do what I want to do with my own body. And who in the hell set things up like this? And in France they say if the guy penetrates but does not ejaculate, then he did not rape me. And if after stabbing him, if after screams, if after begging the bastard, and even after smashing a hammer to his head, if even after that, if he and his buddies fucked me after that, then I consented. And there was no rape. Because finally, you understand, finally, they fucked me over because I was wrong. I was wrong again to be me, being me where I was, wrong to be who I am. Which is exactly like South Africa, penetrating into Namibia, penetrating into Angola. Does that mean, how do you know if Pretoria ejaculates, what will the evidence look like? The proof of the monster jackboot ejaculation on black land. And if after Namibia, and if after Angola, and if after Zimbabwe, and if after all of my kinsmen and women resist, even to self-immolation of the villages, and if after that we lose nevertheless, what will the big boys say? Will they claim my consent? Do you follow me? We are the wrong people of the wrong skin on the wrong continent, and what in the hell is everybody being reasonable about? And according to the Times this week, back in 1966, the CIA decided that they had this problem, and the problem was a man named Nkrumah. So they killed him, and before that it was Patrice Lumumba, and before that it was my father on the campus of my Ivy League school, and my father afraid to walk into the cafeteria because he said he was the wrong age, the wrong skin, the wrong gender identity, and he was paying my tuition. And before that, it was my father saying I was wrong, saying that I should have been a boy because he wanted one, a boy, and that I should have been lighter skinned, and that I should have had straighter hair, and that I should not be so boy crazy, but instead I should just be one, a boy. And before that, it was my mother pleading plastic surgery for my nose and braces for my teeth, and telling me to let the books loose, to let them loose. In other words, I am very familiar with the problems of the CIA and the problems of South Africa and the problems of Exxon Corporation and the problems of white America in general and the problems of the teachers and the preachers and the FBI and the social workers and my particular mom and dad. I'm very familiar with the problems because the problems turn out to be me. I am a history of rape. I am a history of the rejection of who I am. I am a history of the terrorized incarceration of myself. I am the history of battery assault and limitless armies against whatever I want to do with my mind and my body and my soul. And whether it's about walking out at night, or whether it's about the love that I feel, or whether it's about the sanctity of my vagina, or the sanctity of my national boundaries, or the sanctity of my leaders, or the sanctity of each and every desire that I know from my personal and idiosyncratic and indisputable single and singular heart, I have been raped because I have been wrong. The wrong sex, the wrong age, the wrong skin, the wrong nose, the wrong hair, the wrong need, the wrong dream, the wrong geographic, the wrong sartorial eye. I have been the meaning of rape. I have been the problem everyone seeks to eliminate by forced penetration with or without the evidence of slime. But this be unmistakable, this poem is not consent. I do not consent to my mother, to my father, to the teachers, to the FBI, to South Africa, to Bedford-Stuy, to Park Avenue, to American Airlines, to the hard-on idlers on the corners, to the sneaky creeps in cars. I am not wrong. Wrong is not my name. My name is my own, my own, my own. And I can't tell you who the hell set things up like this, but I can tell you that from now on, my resistance, my simple and daily and nightly self-determination may very well cost you your life. A bit of a long one, but...
No, but it's also very, very powerful. And as I was listening to it, it's all of us. I was thinking of it, as I was thinking of every woman. Obviously, because I'm a woman, so that problem I do understand of what the media demands of us, of what our parents demand of us, of what society says we should be, and this constant thing where we can never be right about anything. I mean, often we talk about it, about how women are supposed to look. At the moment it's big backsides and big hips that are the vogue. Another time it is something else. But this is even on a larger scale, because it comes from like the human angle to national angle to global angle. And as she said, we're all being, excuse me listeners, fucked left, right and center by all of those going up the scale. So yes, you're right, it was long, but it really puts things in place, because it started from the small, and it goes up as to what nations do to each other. And of course they also got rid of Thomas Sankara, and people being dragged off to the international tribunal courts. It's often Africans who are being dragged there, while others who are committing even bigger crimes are happily walking around and feeling pleased with themselves. That was a fantastic read. Could you just give us the titles of the books that lost out in the competition?
Yes, so I had Queen Poku, Veronica Taju's Queen Poku, which talks about the Baole, and that's an interesting and powerful piece around leadership and sacrifice, and especially women's sacrifice. Because in the story she sacrifices her child to help her people escape, and that's how the Baole starts. Is really her cry for why she had to make that sacrifice. So I had that, and I also had Kwame Nkrumah's Class Struggle in Africa. So there's a little bit of neo-colonialism I'd wanted to read, and then Ngugi wa Thiong'o's Decolonizing the Mind.
Yes, decolonizing. Yeah.
And I think for me, what I also like about the June Jordan piece is it speaks to the oppressor in some ways in all of us. And so she's by her father, but her father is also being oppressed. So this layer and really in some ways systems,
Yes.
and how systems can make us violent if we don't check them or check ourselves and understand what we're in.
And also talking about not accepting,
Mm-hmm.
not accepting, you know, what is imposed upon you, or how people decide to define you or tell you in what spaces you can operate and stuff like that. Wow, that was very, very, very good read. Now, at last, we have reached that part of the show. You've already heard her reading, and I'm very happy to have her here today. So once again, Epifania, welcome to Arts Africa. I don't know where to start with you, actually. What do you do?
That's a really good question. What do I do? If I'm to think of what I do now, is I'm trying to understand better who I am, and then in understanding that, how then, well, what I would want to do, really want to do, and then how what I want to do will relate to others in the world. And for me, it's linked back to the poem that I read, in terms of, I feel for many of us, our tasks are two-pronged in this world we live in. We're not really happy with the way things are. The facts that some have and others don't, or should I say few have and many don't. And we want to change that somehow. And so for us, really, it's two tasks, which is one, about imagining a future that we don't even know what it looks like and we don't know how to even start it. And two, understanding the one we're in now and trying to help others in this current situation to have a better way of life within it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for me, that's linked to this trying to know who I am and what I want to do and how I can contribute better. Because I think before, I've worked in many places, I've done a lot of work, but I don't think I was really clear on who I am. But I was trying to be involved in making changes in the world without being clear on who I am.
And so with what you do, how are you using that? I mean, I've mentioned several times this title of yours, Conscious Manifestor. What is that?
Yes, and this is something actually I myself I'm really a novice in trying to understand it. But if I was to talk about it in some ways an ignorant sort of way, is it's trying to really be able to manifest what you desire to live, how you desire to live and would like to see in the world, but from nothing really, and actually in with a lot of contestation and a lot of opposition with the reality we live in. So for me, one example would be the capitalist system that most of us live in. I think there should be a different way to live. Some people talk about things like the gift economy or other kinds of economies, but the question becomes, how do you make that possible? And we find now that science is coming there, but I would say a lot of spiritual traditions have always talked about this fact that we are more than our bodies and our minds. We've tried to use, I'll say maybe in really old days, our bodies to change the world, and now with the knowledge economy, we are using our minds to change the world. But
Actually, sorry, I'm going to cut
yes.
you. You know, as you said that, for instance, when we look at the pyramids and we look at the Mayan architecture, and you wonder, without the technology, how did they achieve this? If you hear the sizes of some of the stones that had to be moved from very, very far away to get to that point. You know, in Ethiopia, when you go to Lalibela and places, they tell you the angels built the rock-hewn churches, and of course people would laugh and think, but when you look at it, how was it humanly possible physically without the without technology? So then obviously you have to now go to what the mind, the power, and
and the power of the mind. But I think there's even more. This at the moment, a lot of people are looking at this question of how we tap into, for want of a better word, our divinity. So how do we tap into what is not yet tangible? because we at the moment are in a particular frequency, which is a very sort of material frequency, but there is many would say much more than that. And for me, I see it even just in the technologies that we have. In my lifetime, smartphones were unheard of. I mean, mobile phones were even unheard of. I remember receiving telegrams, where you have, hello, this is mom, stop.
Yeah.
But somebody imagined that, and somebody imagined that in its absence. And so for me, much of that I think is around this question of conscious manifestation, of being able to tap into other frequencies, the frequencies you cannot see. And a lot of that I would say is tied to imagination, creativity, art, and things like this.
I'm just going to interrupt you a little bit there. I need to apologize to our viewers on Facebook for the break in transmission. So join us, continue joining us with this exciting conversation I'm having with Epifania. Go to our website at africaglobalradio.com and jump in, because there's some really exciting stuff we're chatting at the moment. Sorry, Epi, continue.
Yes. So in tying it sort of back a little bit to the conscious manifestation, it's really this idea of being able to tap into frequencies that are perhaps not physical, in ways where you're able to use them to be able to manifest things through you that are not actually really you're doing in many instances. So when you think of things that are really innovative,
Wouldn't
really
some
new.
people say God?
Yes. So I think for many of us, we have different ways of describing it. So some maybe, let's say, within science or atheists might talk about it as energy. Others with more spiritual bent will talk a bit about it as God. Others who are sort of in between, would say the universe.
Yeah.
But yes,
Or
very
the
much so.
omnipotent.
Yes.
Yeah.
But very much so. And this is, something that's, I think, has been known by many traditions, I would say, the wisdom traditions in many places around the world. That has always been known. But I think the challenge for many was that there was no evidence. There was no proof. And since a lot of us are Western educated and need scientific proof,
but okay,
this is where the challenge has been for many years, where people would not believe it, especially those educated within that system, unless I see it.
I don't believe it.
Yes, but now at the moment, science is also seeing it in many ways. And so, for example, I think of the experiment where they have, I believe it's a light going through slits, and it's either comes as particles or it comes as waves. And the difference between it being a particle and wave, so it comes as a wave, but when it's being observed by a person, it turns into a particle, so it becomes fixed, as opposed to infinite and many possibilities.
Fluid
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that, you think, so what does that mean, in terms of what we can do, what is capable?
But I mean, even saying that, you even think about us as human being, this physical mass. What is that?
Yes, and I mean the science now, of course, because now they've been able to look really, really tiny, right, as well as really, really huge. But it will say most of what we are is actually a kind of emptiness and nothingness and an energy and a movement. For maybe what is more manageable for us to understand is the fact that we even change, right? Your hair keeps growing, the
Your
nails,
cells
the skin.
change.
Yes. So that feels a little bit more okay. I can live with that a little bit more. But that really at a subatomic level, there's much more that we do not see. And a lot argue that it's a bit like radio frequencies, right? That we cannot hear them unless we develop instruments to be able to tap into them. And I think it's potentially the same thing.
I mean, it's literally even like a dog whistle. I mean, you blow, the dogs can hear it, but it's on a frequency that as yet our ears cannot, go to. So how do you consciously manifest something?
And this is what I'm now trying to work out. And I have to admit that one of the things I realized in this time really is that a lot of it is actually about the need to be in a space where you do nothing, where there's silence, where I mean, many will talk about it in terms of meditation. In terms of prayer, but there's really, I believe that part of it is being at a point where you as your identity, your name, your gender, etc., doesn't exist anymore, even if it's really for a moment, because I think that speaks to being open to possibilities, because they talk a lot about positive thinking and positive thought, and many people say, but I think positively, but nothing happens. But really, when we listen quietly to ourselves, there's always sometimes this negative undercurrent,
yes,
that is not possible, it won't happen, no,
yeah.
I don't deserve it, I'm not worthy of it, and so on and so forth. So for me, it's several things. There's one, this quietness of space. I think this quietness of space is also linked to ideas around gratitude and being thankful. I think of a story.
Genuinely thankful.
Like feeling thankful. Because sometimes you can say it but not feel it.
Yeah.
I think emotion is tied to it.
Because I also think that there, not that it's faked, but there are people who can force it and think I mean, there's a thing of fake it until you make it. So you can pretend to be happy until you are happy, but it does need to come from a genuine place.
Yes, and I think so. And the thing, I mean, I would say maybe the positive side of faking it is that when you do force a smile, when you do move your muscles in that way, it does it changes, right? If you laugh. So I think there's something to be said about it. But yes, you need to genuinely feel it. And for me, it's tied to. I remember hearing a story about a rainmaker who, I think it was in New Mexico, the US of A. And this rainmaker was able to call rain, and he was asked, how do you do it? And he talked about how he doesn't stand and ask for rain. He stands in gratitude for the rain that has already fallen. And this is the difference. But of course, when it rained, it flooded, and they asked, can you control it? And he said, well, no, you cannot control it. You can ask for what you want. You can desire it greatly through gratitude, and also this, I think the most difficult thing, which is wanting and desiring, but not vesting in the outcome. So forgetting about it.
The outcome
so asking for it, but forgetting about it.
Whatever will be.
So letting the universe, God, energy, take you wherever, whilst also desiring what you want and imagining it constantly.
But then there, of course, there's also what you want and what you actually need.
Yes.
So, if you're being, as they say, when things fall apart, sometimes they're actually falling into place. Yes. But as they're falling apart, obviously you will fight against it, because you actually can't see where you're going with that.
No, I mean, I think that's very true. I can't remember who the poet was. She talked about, get out of your own damn way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there is that. But also, I think in some ways we are fortunate that we're not able to manifest as quickly as we want, because some of the things we think about, if they were all here, we really have a lot of problems, and so might others. But I think it also ties to this question that people talk about, listening to the still small voice, which in many ways is really hard to do, because we're in a very noisy world, and I think it's become noisier.
But that's the whole thing about meditation, because once you're able to silence all the noise going on in your head, I mean, I've read in places, and to a certain extent I agree with it, that when you're able to stay still and silence all those voices, that's when you will hear the word of the Almighty.
Yes, I think so. And some call it sometimes intuition. I have a feeling, I have a sense, but then you don't follow it, because either maybe it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't,
you've been nurtured not to follow it.
Yes, and in fact, when coming to think about it, I'll say sometimes maybe education is a good thing, but it's also in many ways a dangerous thing, because it teaches us not to be reliant on ourselves. And not to trust that when we were born into this world, we came with some kind of memory, whether, I mean, there's aspects of it, right, the genetic and other kinds of memories, but I think there's perhaps also a spiritual dimension of memory that we come with, but we are trained somehow, I think, out of it. And we forget, and so then we trust others then who themselves do not know the way. And I think and now I think it's even worse, because if you look everywhere, apart from school telling you what to do, parents telling you what to do, now social media. So every article read how to, how to be happy, how to eat,
I mean,
how to this, how to.
during this COVID, I read one article last week, which was how to shower properly. And I thought, but you just stand under the place and they tell you how many times a week you should bath and the how-tos and especially during the COVID period, it's just gone rampant because it's like, wait a moment, we have too much time on our hands and we can't do anything. So let's crank up all this unnecessary stuff that nobody actually needs.
Yes, and I think there's that, and then I think also many people use it as an opportunity to prey on other people's desires, dreams, and hopes, right? So I can show you the way. I know what it is, but in many instances, really, I just want your money. I want what you can give me, so I can augment my life. Yes,
it's control
so
as well. But
there
then
is that as well.
But then there's also and this was the thing, like, and the poem or the proverb that I had today, and I talked about sort of knowing your purpose in life. So I remember a friend of mine and I were sitting somewhere when we were just talking about this. We were discussing what are we on this earth to do? What is it that we're supposed to achieve? And two male friends of hers walked by and they're like, hey, look at these women always gossiping. And I said, gentlemen, what do you mean women? We are always gossiping. He said, what are you talking about? And I said, we're discussing what we were put on this earth to achieve. Have you ever thought of that? All of a sudden, these two men suddenly found something more urgent to do and quickly, took off, because I think it's not something that people, take time to actually interrogate the raison d'être, the reason for being. And I think that sort of taps into like all the things you've talked about, consciously manifesting things. But it means that you need to look into yourself, and it also reminds me of, I did the Deepak Chopra's 21-day challenge.
Yes. Yeah, I did that.
And it had all these exercises, which was a journey in self-discovery, and it was quite interesting to find out things about yourself when you write them down, and then you go back and you think, oh my gosh, this is so true. And one of them was a thing like, write down things that you have and you're grateful for. And you write and you think, damn it, I actually have a lot. What am I whinging about?
Yes.
So
yes, I mean, I'm thinking of one of the gurus I listened to talked about, if you wake up in the morning and you can breathe,
you're done.
That's it, really. Life is great. And then if you can then think of the people that are close to you, that you love, that you care about, and they're also breathing, then really, what are you complaining about? And I think the other thing it also speaks to is this question, because in many ways we get so bogged down with this idea of making a living. And this same person also mentioned that if a bird or a worm can find food to eat, then with our brain capacity and our ability to communicate and interact and make relationships to transform things, why are we so concerned about this idea? And I don't say this to as if to say there aren't people who really cannot find ways, like food to eat in it. I know there are many people really struggling, but I think there's an obsession around it that has many just hoarding and collecting things.
And then the other thing is, I don't know if birds are as selfish as human beings. I mean, animals are very, they take what they need. But we will hoard, we want to one-up each other, and then obviously those in control, as you said, the few have so much and the many have so little. There's enough food to go around, but when certain people are hoarding it, it makes it incredibly difficult for especially those at the lower rungs, the just even poor in, not in just poor in the sense of possessions, but in education, in exposure. It makes it incredibly difficult for them to be able to achieve anything.
It's true. And as you were saying that, actually I was thinking of the crows in our house, because we sometimes put food out, and when one comes they caw all over, and then you see tons of them coming. So very much this idea of sharing. But I think in some ways we have this ability to share. We've just become we've fallen into this kind of scarcity mentality, and I think some of that maybe is tied into the fact that we've forgotten how powerful we are, like, and that a lot of it is within each and every one of us. And so I think then I'm not good enough, but you have it all, so I must have what you have, as opposed to recognizing that it's all within us. And if we were a little less greedy, it's also the environment is there to support us in a moderate way of living. But of course, if I want my four-wheel drive and my 5-bedroom mansion and a satellite TV and all this stuff, that's a whole different conversation altogether. And for that way of living, which for me is very tied into this idea of the capitalist system, some of you are going to need to not have any.
Yeah,
this is the way.
Because you need that competition. You need that people to covet things that they don't necessarily need, and control, because control is always at the back end of stuff. Epi, we could have gone on, and then I could have moved on to, we didn't actually get a chance to talk about specifically your painting and the music and your book writing and stuff, but we did talk about art, because what you said is really important. I don't think a lot of people actually think about many of the things you've talked about, and I think this conversation would give people food for thought, to think about how they can manifest, and it's just a different perspective on life. And
yes, very much so. And I think in some way it doesn't matter that we didn't talk about all those things, because I think all those things are just examples of what you're then able to do, but really the why is important, the paradigm you're living in, why you live your life the way you do. And then as a consequence of that, then you might produce some art, or produce architecture, or produce a business, or what have you.
Or what have you. So, but it all comes from a place, and that is where it all needs to start from. So once again, we have come to the end of the show. We could have had Epi here the whole day, and we would have learned more and more new things. Now, this show is an art show, but art is life, and even though we didn't get to touch on her painting and her experimenting with music, we touched on something that was very important, which is life itself. And life is a huge collage of art. So it has been a major pleasure. Once again, I would like to apologize for our transmission breaking up on Facebook, but I hope you were able to catch up with us. Thank you for listening. I know we all learnt something new and gathered a new perspective that maybe you hadn't thought of before. And of course, we came with some amazing music. I want to thank Maud and my behind the scenes colleagues who made this go so smoothly. Joel, come here. I want you to come and see Joel. He's my wonderful, wonderful young man who has made everything go smoothly here. Thank you, Joel. And then, of course, I just want to remind you of our proverb. Anyone who plants a tree before they die has not lived in vain. This should resonate a lot with our conversation we had with Epi. I know I'm going to spend a little time meditating on this and thinking about my purpose, about what good I'm putting into my life, and also to the world around me. We are on africaglobalradio.com. On Twitter, we are at AF Global. Instagram, AF Global Radio. Facebook, Africa Global Radio. And of course, you can send us a WhatsApp on +233 207 0646 80. And don't forget to send me how you greet in your language. Arts Africa is brought to you by Africa Global Radio in collaboration with the Creative Writing Academy. My name is Alba K. Sumprim, host of Arts Africa on Africa Global Radio. And we are nearly at the end of the show. Epifania, thank you so much for coming. I hope you had a good time too.